Hello and welcome to Commodity Champions. I'm Manisha Gupta. Well, India's gold sector gets a new self-regulatory body. The organization, which has been set up with the help of World Gold Council, is aimed at boosting consumer confidence. The Indian Association for Gold Excellence and Standards has been tasked with ensuring free, fair and sustainable practices in the industry, along with regulatory compliance. The association will establish a code of conduct and introduce an audit framework created by the industry itself. It is set to be operational by early next year, and the adoption of the organization's code will be entirely voluntary for companies. To understand more about what the body aims to do, I'm joined by Sachin Jain. He's CEO of India for World Gold Council. Sachin, hi, thank you so much for joining us. And there's so much to talk about in sense of gold. But first of all, about this new body that has been formed, and as the press release suggests, that it will be operational early next year. Why do you think it was needed?
Manisha, thanks so much for getting me on. And it's such an important step that we as a world, as the gold industry is taking. And I'm really proud to share that this is the first time there will be a self-regulatory organization in the gold business anywhere in the world. And the first step is going to be in India. That gives me a lot of pride. And the fact is that, self-regulation as a concept is a area envisaged and promoted and suggested by the government of India. And it exists already in various industries. The fact that we're now trying to implement the same in the gold business is not something that we started thinking about it just now. It's been an endeavor and a conversation for very many years. We've, amongst all the researches we've done with the end consumer, the consumer on the street who's willing to consume gold, there is, in all the researches come out, there is a trust deficit. And in order to, sort of minimize the trust deficit, in order to almost organize the industry better, to have one voice of the industry, a self-regulatory organization is a great step. And if I were to explain to you what that really means, is that it's between an association that exists between the industry and the government regulator. And this self-regulation, which, as you mentioned, is voluntary, is around a code of conduct, is based on an audit framework. And what it'll do to the end customer is that you can put your hand on the heart, and when you see that logo of IAGES that you just now talked about, which is India Association for Gold Excellent Standards, you could be rest assured that the business integrity and the business process in this enterprise is well taken care of. So the intent to provide, as you said, more transparency, but really more confidence into the gold business.
Sachin, also, various Indian associations are part of it, and many of these associations, whether it's the IBJ or GJPC and the other ones, have their own members, and they also do some verified checking in all their members as well. There are various schemes run by all of them. Would you say that with the formation of IAGS, you will perhaps supersede all of those?
Well, intent, Manisha, is not to supersede anybody. Everybody comes in as a specialty of what they do. The intent of IAGS is to be across the value chain. So the membership is open to people right from bullion trade, refinery, trading, manufacturing, retailing, digital play. So it's through the value chain of the gold business.
And Sachin, is there a cost of joining this? Is there a cost to all of this?
Well, the cost will be to get the audits done. And yes, there will be a cost around it. But the intent is not the cost and hence the governing body. The intent is really to create a future where, and we believe that industry at large does a great amount of work based on integrity, based on the rules and regulations. The core objective of IAGS will be to, one, recognize people who are doing a great job and, garner their interest. Secondly, give a roadmap to people who want to accelerate and do things better. So, for example, this is not an organization for only big players in the industry. So hence it's Big Boys Club. Any and everybody in the gold business can be members of it.
Sachin, I've been in the industry very, very long time. So have you been? And we do realize that various self-regulatory programs like these have been brought earlier as well into the system, haven't really worked. What makes you think that this will for sure work? Is it because all the associations have come together for the first time ever?
Well, that's certainly one, Manisha. I think also the need of the hour is that by end of this, this year, 70% plus of our country will be millennials or younger. And as an industry, we got to gear up to have right answers and right solutions for the new age consumer. That's number one. That'll be the core driving factor. The interest of World Gold Council here is to provide the seed, provide the infrastructure, provide enough support, not just for year 2024, but also for the years to come forward. where we will be ensuring that the right investments are made, that the name of IHS, the logo of IHS is gaining a lot of popularity and is well understood by the end consumers. So while it's about creating something, and you rightly said that there have been a lot of initiatives like this, the difference really here is that the governing body or the governing board of this association on one side will have the associate representation, but also will have independent board of directors, which will guide this process forward. And secondly, we'll be investing huge amount of energies and money to communicate and make aware of what IHS is to the end consumer. So that really walk into stores which stand for integrity and hence have the IHS logo.
All right. So I actually want to come back to the consumer-centric part of this. And in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen hallmarking come in a very big way. We've seen more organized players, more organized chains opening up as well. There is more transparency. People are aware more about certification when it comes to diamonds and various other things as well. We've seen IPOs come in. So yes, in that sense, the industry really seems to be growing with leaps and bounds. When it comes to directly to the consumer, what is it that the consumer now can look forward to with IGS, knowing that that your participant or your member is clearly clean in that sense?
Well, I think, Manisha, for different verticals, as I mentioned, different parts of the value chain, the different layers of code of conduct that every player will have to adhere to. And the audit will happen by independent body, which will be done through auditors. So it's pretty serious in that sense. And I can assure you that the way it's framework, it's incorporating the big and the small, the geographical variation of rural and urban, and big to small and everybody else. Now, what that will do is we'll almost create a framework of understanding or being sure that right business practices are followed. So while you're talking about hallmarking, yes, of course, that's industry norm now. But taxation paying. Are you providing, is there no child labor in our business? Are you providing enough infrastructure for your laborers? Are you providing, proper billing standards? So all of these things, which will be important for a consumer at large.
Sachin, well, that's about the new organization. Of course, we'll keep an eye on that as you have more framework and more guidelines to share with us as well. I mean, as you said, this is going to add another layer as also the part being that more associations are coming together for this. So I'm assuming that there would be more harmony within. And when you're talking to the government, it would be one voice. I mean, that is something that was clearly needed within the industry here. But let's talk about the gold prices also. And that clearly has been one of the top stories too. The global market seeing a decline and, of course, the duty cut within India as well. Has all of that stabilized? The premium that we saw in the prices a few days ago, would you say the markets are now more settled?
I think markets, Manisha, will be settled, I think, in a little more time, because also this is compiled with the global volatility that's happening and in the financial markets going up and down. So that's one part. I think the custom duty cut has been a very welcome move. It almost gives a great throughput to the Indian consumer to actually consume more gold. And a lot of comparatively with this, the cut of all the smuggling grey channel, I think the Indian industry will operate at a parity. And lastly, when we look at the overall numbers as to what does the gold business contribute, there'll be a fair number that includes every part of the gold business. So I think with that given, we foresee that these Q4 with the festive season coming in, and also right now in the next one or 2 months, we're seeing a lot of preparation happening by the industry and the jewelers as such. We think that Q4 will be a very important quarter, very buoyant quarter for the business. Oh, absolutely. Next week is IGS and all eyes onto that one as far as the industry goes. But a final question, Sachin, and there still is this fear about GST. I mean, some pockets of people are still talking about that there could be a hike on that. Your sense on that? And the two, what's your sense on the import number now? And as you said, that the festival season could be looking at a higher demand. So if compared to last year, what kind of demand numbers are you looking at? Sure. So, Manisha, to answer your first thing about GST, I think it's a lot of conversation that we are doing as an industry, within the industry, by our industry. I don't think there's any indication that's coming from the government of India yet. The last time when the GST numbers was getting set, there was a great amount of consultation that the government of India did with the industry at large, what it's going to be for the gold business, what it's going to be for the diamond business. And I foresee that even if any change is going to come, it's going to go through a lot of conversation at a right level. So I think we're sort of shooting the gun a little too ahead, and we should focus on, as an industry, focus on the opportunity now, the corrective measures, and the very important strong measure that the government has taken, and garner the benefit of that. That's part one. Your second point about what we envisage as the import number. If you reflect on quarter two and the results of quarter two, we've ended the quarter two at almost about 149.7 tons of consumption, which is with the combination of investment demand, which went up by 47%, which is huge, and also 17% drop in jewelry. Now, that was the end of quarter two, where with the price of gold, we saw a slightly dampened demand of the end consumer on jewelry. Now, with this change of correction, now our earlier envisaged number for the year, which was around 700 to 750 tons, I think we will still get to that same number, perhaps at the end of that number. And hence, I think that even with this slightly slowdown in quarter two, it's going to get picked up and we'll get to the same numbers minimum at 700 to 750 tons as the end of the year.
All right. So strong numbers coming in, and of course a lot of euphoria after the prices have declined, and why not, because we're heading into the festive season as well. Sachin, thank you so much for joining in and talking all things gold. But with that, we have to take a very short break. But coming up, the crypto markets have improved after a near meltdown on the back of sell-off in wider markets. A discussion with Dilip Chenoy, chairman of Bharat Web3 Association, when we return. Welcome back. You're watching Commodity Champions, and the cryptocurrency market has improved after a near meltdown on the back of sell-off in wider markets on Monday. Bitcoin fell below 50,000 to Feb lows as investors fled risk assets. Meanwhile, Ether's 25% decline in a single day was the most since May 2021. Well, the rising tensions in the Middle East and concerns about the strength of global economy ate into investors' confidence. The bloodbath led to over $1 billion in liquidation in crypto futures market. Bitcoin prices have fallen by over 16% in the past 1 week, while Ether has seen a slump of more than 24%. Joining us to talk about crypto markets and, of course, various issues at hand is Dilip Chenoy. He is chairman at Bharat Web3 Association. Mr. Chenoy, hi, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, on the price moves itself, and of course, every global asset was declining, and so were cryptocurrencies in that sense. But the way the global markets are right now and the prices have moved, what's your sense on what really could be the step ahead?
Manisha, thank you for having me here. And, as you know, BWA does not really look at the crypto prices as such. But since you asked the question, I think, Sunday and Monday events were unprecedented in the world, right? So given that, it actually affected every market, and the crypto markets were no different. You will see, while week on week, as you're showing, and day on day, or from a 6-week high price, the prices declined. But I think the signs are that there'll be some stability before there will be some recovery going forward. But again, a lot depends on what happens in the Middle East and in other parts of the world, because that could trigger different reactions from a different set of people.
Oh, well, absolutely. And let's also talk about concerns at hand and within Indian markets on what really has conspired with WazirX, nearly $230 million of a highs there. Of course, the exchange has been coming on yet and again with various kind of solutions, haven't gone down so well with the participants and public at large. What's your sense on what the learnings are from the global markets on this one, and how would India or how would the exchange now look at it?
So I think, Manisha, that the response from the exchange is one thing that, I'll just briefly talk about, but let's talk about the future. I think the exchange is trying to gauge what the investors in their community want, and therefore they've conducted polls, etc. And you'll see some more of that happening. The good point is that the exchange, like all the other hacks that happened earlier, is looking at paying back their investors in full, but it makes some time going forward. And it's a process that is going on, and it's not appropriate to comment at this stage, excepting that they are engaging with their stakeholders and they're trying to find a solution going forward. There are two lessons in this, and this is what you actually talked about. The first is that, okay, what is this whole cybersecurity and the security issues there? So what we at BW have done, we've actually written out to all our members, and members have started nominating their representatives on the chief IT security of the CISO group, and we're going to look at sharing best practices, look at global best practices. BW is also reaching out to its international partners and trying to see how we actually address this issue collectively going forward. And that, getting out best practices, looking at self-declaration, getting and posting things so that the customers know what the state of action with each of the exchanges is, right? And it may be with other companies as well, which are consumer focusing. The second is that, as you're aware, that we've got our consumer code, right? We had developed a consumer code that was really focused at the whole issue of anti-money laundering and the FIU kind of compliance and the consumer, etc. We are putting together the whole legal team, legal committee, and the compliance subcommittee are getting together. They're actually the meeting will happen, maybe in a few minutes from now, must be happening at this point of time, to look at getting in inputs and collectively looking and updating our consumer code and actually looking at how to address such issues so that these things are known before something actually happens like has happened in the recent past.
And that's not just it, because Mr. Chenoy, there was another news report that I was reading that there also has been a tax show cause notice which has been issued to Binance. I mean, this is all source-based really, at about $86 million in India. And Binance has challenged it. And this is a notice that covers from June 2017 to March 2024. I mean, as you said, there's work being done within Indian market so that we can look at legal and compliance issues here. How would you read this story as well?
Well, the issue really here is that if you're operating in India, you have to comply with the Indian laws. As you're well aware that we have a 1% TDS, we have a 30% tax, and there's no offsetting of losses. And I think if you're serving customers in India and they are trading on your platform, then on the commissions that you make, the GST authorities believe that tax should be paid. So they have actually issued a notice, and as you have said, Binance has actually challenged it, and I think now we will see how it goes forward. But the BWA stance has always been that, please, if you're operating in India, please comply with domestic laws. If you have to deduct TDS, please deduct TDS. If you have to pay GST, please deduct GST. In fact, our members, we have a lot of members who are in the taxation field who work with exchanges and consumers to help them file the returns and meet the requirements of the IT Act. As you know, there's a special section where you have to declare the assets. The calculation of tax on this has now more or less been automated, so you can actually do this. So the BWA's effort is really to get all its members and everybody operating in the community comply with the local laws and be there. And if there's some notice and the company is challenged, we'll have to wait for the outcome of things here.
So, Mr. Chenoy, as a lot of work is being done, but this is not, it never promised to be an easy path to begin with. When you look at the Indian markets and when we look at Web3 and blockchain and crypto for that matter, how would you look at India participating into this? Where do you see the challenges? What is the outcome anticipated of this? And how do you see the vision ahead, road ahead from here?
So I think, Manisha, there are two aspects to this entire thing, right? As Chris Dixon puts it very nicely in his book, Read, Write, Own, there is the investment, which he calls the casino thing, and there's a computer, right? And the computer applications which is what is a very interesting part for India. And the linkage is very simple, that India has 12%, upwards of 12% of global manpower in this areas. We have over 1,000 plus startups in this space. And there are lots of small applications. We must understand that, we are somewhat like the early days of IT, where the only thing you could have was maybe the early versions of Excel or Word, etc., not the sophisticated versions that you have now. and then the applications are developing. So there are many, many applications. Many state governments are using this technology to do pilots in their states, and from areas of tokenization of land records or tokenization of real estate. The caste certificates in Gadchiroli were quoted by the Niti Aayog as a very good example. In UP, you have now filings or FIRs on the blockchain. You have over 35 to 40 applications in approximately 18 to 20 states, right? And those are that are known. There's many more things happening in different states, right? Where this is happening. And if you look at Web3 and you look at the metaverse space, right, and the AVGC space, there's a lot of, almost all states are looking at state level policies, etc. here. Now, what's going to happen in the future is, like we moved from Web 1 to Web 2, where it took some time to move, all Web 2 applications initially and more new applications. The challenge that is happening now is a lot of people are trying to convert Web 2 applications to Web 3 applications, but there are a lot of new applications which are there where Indian startups around the country are doing, and they're doing pilots and testing it. And I'm sure we could actually get world beaters, even if we could layer 2 technology, right? Polygon is actually an Indian company, okay? And it's up there amongst the best companies. A lot of people don't know that Brave, which is competing among the top 4 browsers, is actually based out of, was set up by Indian founders, although they have set it up outside of India. And therefore, the statement recently by the finance ministry that they're looking at coming out with a policy to regulate this space is very, very welcome. We will be working fully in partnership with them to ensure that India can actually add nearly close to $1.1 trillion if we actually give good support to this sector going forward. And that is where I think all companies and the youth of India can actually do that. So Indians spend a lot of time on using their phones and using the web, etc. Today, there's very little opportunity for them to monetize it. But Web3 gives the opportunity where people will be able to monetize it and earn while sitting in India, and it'll create a lot more entrepreneurial opportunities going forward.
Absolutely, Mr. Chenoy, we hear that, but I also get your point about best practices within India, full compliance to the Indian laws. And as you mentioned, that there are 35 to 40 applications in 18 to 20 Indian states which are using Web3 and blockchain. I mean, that perhaps is the way forward. But as of now, certain issues, and as you said, the community clearly seems to be working towards that. But thank you so much for joining in and putting in a light on all of those matters. But with that, that's completely out of time on Commodity Champions. Thank you for watching.